Namaste, good evening, and welcome
Good
to
evening.
the sixth session of TuriyaTalks Season 3, confined to our homes, hoping for a better future. But the arena of communication hasn't vanished from our lives. Even though we are all striving through this pandemic distress, we very well know that all of us will come out of it together with a new sense and respect for life. So, even when we are at our homes, we have not left our social life to a miserable one. Being as creative as we can, we have found various ways of communication to our friends, families, and colleagues as well. We do have to find new topics to gossip about, right? But also to keep the connection among our close ones alive and peaceful. These days, we are all doing is communicating with the outside world. While this generation is completely focused on the parameters of how digital media can help them get out of their regular boredom level, every single person is now mastering the art of communication, be it via any means. This leads us to the term mass communication. Mass communication is a kind of an umbrella term for a wide variety of media fields, such as that of theater, radio, television, filmmaking, journalism, advertising, PR, I mean to say public relations, and others. It involves writing things which have a larger social impact and includes opinion pieces and features which are given by journalists and writers. Or is it? It is the topic for today, where we are discussing the tenets of mass communication, past, present, and future. So we have with us Mr. Pratim Bose. Welcome to Turiya Talks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
And now we are back with season 3. Be a part of the conversation now and get a chance to interact with guest speakers from all walks of life every Tuesday and Saturday at 6:30 p.m. only on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to Turiya Talks and hit the bell icon to never miss an update.
Sir, once again, welcome to Turiya Talks. Sir does not need any
Thank
introduction.
you.
Of course, it's very, very difficult to say a couple of things about him. I think when we began journalism, he was already heading some news bureau. And as a young, reporter, I have seen him. So I think a little introduction. So sir is an Indian columnist and researcher. He used to be the deputy editor in Hindu Business Line for many years. And of course, he moved on to pursue his own interests. And the entire world is going to hear big things about him and what is he into and what is he going to do in next 2-3 years, because any venture, it takes time. And he has served as a journalist for 3 decades. Sir is a Jefferson Fellow and recipient of US grant in the year 2016. He's a specialist in energy, infrastructure, regional trade, connectivity, Northeast India, and a couple of other issues. Apart from journalism, he had worked with a number of Indian and foreign think tanks in projects on his areas of specialization, and has been a speaker in many national and international conferences, and has a series of published academic publications also. So in this 21st century, people tend to believe whatsoever they watch on the television. They depend on the news, statistics, and knowledge provided to them by the variety of news channels. Starting from broadcast journalism to entertainment and investigative journalism, there are various forms on which the press revolves around. Sir, before we begin, I think my first question, if you can take people through your journey.
Oh, well, That was 1990. I was studying economics in postgraduate. I was doing my postgraduate in economics in Jadavpur University in 89-91 batch. And so I came from a small city called Durgapur. Okay. So when I was doing my postgraduate, that was a very remarkable time because in 1989 the Berlin Wall fell. Fall of Berlin Wall means the Cold War era ended, and so that's a completely, from economic terms, uh, so the communist era is gone, closed economy era, and then by 1991 we had liberalization in India. Now, funnily, what happened is that by that time, that happens everywhere. So our academic syllabus, in our academic syllabus, we were still studying the great stories of Soviet Russia, economic history, etc., etc. So I was a little desperate. I was not finding lot of charm. And one thing I knew, I did try. I did a course in export management, all those things. I did my hands in cost accountancy a little bit, but those jobs were not really for me. I was looking for something a little more. I mean, I had no idea, what to do. But of course, then came a opening in a small newspaper in Kolkata. Some magazines came up. If you remember, that was the time when share market became extremely relevant to our lives.
Right.
So naturally, so I saw that there is an opportunity for my kind of people, because I'm coming without any baggage of closed economy, without any baggage of legacy economy. I was very happy with the liberalization. And one thing is, I have been an avid reader all through I mean, always. And newspaper reading was part of my newspaper, financial newspaper, whatever. So I very smoothly got a anchor in this. I loved it. And so it began. But of course, this journey hasn't been very smooth. It is never. In our days, we used to start from small paper and then moved on to bigger things. So we did. It's more a passion that we pursued. So my passion became my profession. I couldn't live a life where my passion is something and my profession is something else. That is at least what I thought, and I pursued it and reached somewhere. And I strongly believe that you should be known by your work rather than by your designation or whatever. So I hope that I did some work and doing some work. That's
Right.
it.
Right. I think even Maria Maines once said that more people are reached by mass communication, the less they communicate with each other. Sir, I wanted to ask you something. As mentioned, a changing world makes us focus on the necessity to change ourselves for a better future. So, what would you say about the different methods of mass communication that are being practiced in today's century? How are they different from that in the past?
Okay. Oh, hell of a difference. Hell of a difference. I'm just giving you one perspective.
Right,
When
sir.
I started my career in the age of uh, typewriters, right? I saw uh, personal computers, but internet came in my life by the time of, I think around 1997. And that was rather for very closed view, because I remember I used to buy a pack of 3,000 rupees for 100 MB from BSNL. What the change that has come to our lives is, there was a time, we often complain. You might have seen while, nowadays people are always busy with their mobile phones, right? Now, this has been the revolution. There was a time when there were a couple of newspapers, and there were newspapers from smaller localities. So these are mass media. People were catering to small. The world was divided into small islands, like an archipelago. What happened today is a complete change. Earlier, think of a newspaper reader or a radio audience or a TV viewer, right? He was not able to interact with you. But
Right.
it has now become completely different. Think of India. We have roughly 45 crore smartphones, right? And people do have Facebook, Twitter, or some other social networking account. People are constantly expressing themselves. And at the same time, you have the mass media. So now the role of mass media is also includes, earlier it was a one-way traffic. Now I also have to check what they are doing. So here comes the term of citizens reporting. So you might notice in the last 2 3 years, I have noticed it very carefully in all newspapers and all televisions. A good chunk of the news that they dish out is actually the source is social networking sites. Someone reported it and they followed it. So from the whole paradigm has shifted. Now you cannot distinguish between one source. Earlier there was a hierarchy, like government is giving a press release, I am interacting with the minister, understanding it, and putting up a report that will be read by someone else, a wider audience. Now the minister is tweeting and people are reacting, and I have to pick both ends and get beyond that.
Right.
So the job has become way difficult than it was.
Okay. Any advice what people should do in the current era? Sir, I think people will attend this even in the form of video just to understand how things are, because you yourself, you're an institution. 3 decades in one industry, I think people do look forward to some tips, quick tips, what to do, what not to do. I think that would help.
Yes, see, I have been in 3 decades because I love to, and it
Right.
is the situation because of a situation of we are in a situation where the media finances got pretty bad, and that is because of that very technology. Okay, it opened, as I was saying, it opened too many sources of information. Now today, what you are doing is mass media, right? You are not owning a newspaper, you are not owning a television channel, but you can still have, through your YouTube channel, you can reach lakhs of people, right?
Right.
So 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 this paradigm has had its own impact on the whole system, and certain legacy things are breaking away. What one thing hasn't changed, that is the content, right? Rather, it has become very difficult because what is happening today is you are living, you are almost standing on an information highway. It's like uh, cars are zooming past you. The problem is to pick up. Earlier, getting information was the problem. Now, getting right information is the problem
Problem.
because there is too much of information. If you keep tracking that information the whole day, I'm talking from the perspective of a lay person, a reader or a viewer. His whole time will be lost and he'll be confused, right? As we are seeing in the whole COVID
Right.
argument. Someone is saying you shouldn't, you should wear these. Someone is saying no, you should not wear mask. I mean, all kinds of confusion has been created.
Seriously.
So
Seriously.
one thing is that you have to have your expertise. If you don't have your expertise in certain areas, as you develop your experience, as you become more experienced, you start with, suppose, at the bottom of the pyramid, you are doing everything. Say, I'm talking about a journalist. He's doing everything. And then he has to be a little selective. He has to understand which are the things that goes with his particular, every person has certain things, certain abilities. Okay, someone can pick up a tune very quickly, someone can pick up a language very quickly. So he has to understand which are the subjects in which he is the best. He can be the best. So ideally, it is going to be, the generalists, as we are seeing in other industries. There will be generalists. I see them. There are scores of them. But if you ask me, the survival rate of a professional, I should say an information professional, finally, is that will completely depend on his subject, on his domain expertise. So whosoever is there, whosoever is working, whether in PR, whether in journalism, TV, wherever they are, they must develop the core competence, identify their core competence, and move accordingly. It's not that you have to identify on the first day, but as you grow, give yourself more time, and then you will find out that you are the best in these areas and focus on those best areas. There are other areas you are among the others. Okay, you are not the best. So pick those, focus on those bests. That will keep you help you survive the whole storm.
Right. Great advice, sir. Since you have talked about mass communication and the inventions, I remember even Walt Disney once said, of all our inventions of mass communications, pictures still speak the most universally understood language. So how would you say that mass communication has developed from print advertising to going digital globally? Number one. Number two, how has it affected the mindset of the variety of people out there?
Very right. Rightly put up. Is that, you see, the first thing when a child is born, you see, he first picks up the sound, right? He learns, he or she, a child utters, normally the first word is ma or dada, dadu, something like that. And those words he picks up, he cannot read, he cannot write. So he listens, right? He sees things. So naturally, it is reading is a more, you have to acquire that ability. So whatever is an acquired ability will have less audience. Okay, we'll find less takers. That has always been the case. Not today. That has always been the case. That is why in advertisement we have always seen use of visuals. Advertisements could have been in text format, but they are not. There is a very interesting use of visuals. So right from, use of visuals can be in different formats. For example, Satyajit Roy's film posters, they are of another class, right? We have seen there was a time when there were a lot of cartoonists in newspapers. So they were using visuals to tell a story. Where it all converges is about telling a story, whether you are doing a film, whether you are writing, whether you are drawing. It all has to, in terms of mass media, it has to tell a story, and I have to tell the story in a manner so that every person, my effort will be to reach out to the maximum number of people. If I talk in a language, for example, without any, for example, we know about an MP, a very erudite person, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. So he speaks in a language that often people goes out and looks at the dictionary, right?
Dictionary, yes.
Right. But then we also see Mr. Chetan Bhagat, his books are selling in millions. It's a different issue whether I like his writing or not.
Right.
But it's a fact, his books sell in millions. So the trick here is his ability to tell a story, and that art will never change. So one important component apart from your subject domain, domain expertise, is your ability to tell a story. Whether you are an advertiser, whether you are a corporate communications person, whether you are making a film, all of you have to tell a story and tell in a manner which is understandable. That is the point where all of us are on the same boat.
Right, sir. I can see few people joining in. Welcome to TuriyaTalks. We have Mr. Pratim Bose with us today and talking about the tenets of mass communication, past, present, and future. Of course, we'll take up few questions, but before that, I wanted to ask you something. Again, without television and mass communication, knowledge wouldn't exist. So I think it actually has the possibility of turning people into being more understanding and empathetic. So, and that is what mass communication should be achieving always. Sir, what is your take on this?
Absolutely. You see, the earliest mass communication has been that Ramayana reading or other religious books. I mean, it can be anything. So these are the earliest forms, or the village square where people meet. These are the earliest forms of mass communication. If you see this whole one, our Rig Veda is all on Shruti, right? So people were listening it from one another. So this is the best. I mean, to me, you understand, a whole book has been written, a whole story. I mean, let's think in terms of a story which was not written, it was only told. So definitely this television plays a very important role. Television or any visual medium, audio visual medium, plays a very, very important role in reaching out to the masses. Nowadays, people look at short videos. So how efficiently you are telling that story there, ensures how many people are seeing it. So your articulation matters there.
Right.
That's it.
We can take a few questions before we proceed if we have. We have a question from Tinanjali Datta, sir. How do you think has technology nowadays affected the previous ways of mass media like print advertising?
Okay, we answered this in part earlier, but first of all, it has affected in terms of business, in terms of business model, because particularly in India, people got newspaper at too cheap, print newspaper at very cheap price, which shouldn't have been the case. A cup of tea at a roadside stall costs more than a newspaper, right? So that shouldn't have been the case. Ideally, if you look at Pakistan, the price of Dawn is, I mean, a few years ago, I checked, it was around 40 rupees, in Indian currency. So you should have a limited audience, and readers must pay for what they are getting. So naturally, when the technology came, it displaced. You see, the technology changed only the medium. Nothing else has changed. In a way, technology gave a very interesting age. When you are distributing a newspaper, you are passing through some distribution channels and you are sharing your revenue with the channel partner. But this electronic medium, first of all, you need very few people to have, at your company, and you can reach the customer straight away. I myself subscribe. I don't take any print newspaper at my home. I subscribe all e-editions. And many foreign, like Bloomberg, I do subscribe. Economist. I'm reading them digitally, right? So it's very good. But the business model, what happened is that the business model of the existing media houses, that suffered. And when that suffered, and the reader is not prepared to pay for what they are getting, the content. So that is where the whole thing has come to, a real, I mean, it has suffered a jolt. But it has to get out of it. Ultimately, it has to pay for the content. If you don't pay for the content, I don't have free time to give you that content, right? Whether it is me or you or whosoever it is. Because I developed that content by investing my time, energy, and many other things. That's it. So that is how it has affected. No other way. The content remaining same. You need that same serious content.
Right, sir. We are flooded with few questions. I think 7-8 questions are there. I think we should take it up fast. We have a question from Ananya Shah. Sir, nowadays with the help of technology, so many fake news portals are diverting people's mind in the name of journalism. What is your view on this, sir?
Well, that is where the institutions should have a role. You see, what's happening is that the good media institutions. See, we have come by a training. I can understand. I can distinguish between a fake news and a correct news. Right? I have that training in me. That is what I've for 30 years haven't gone down the drain. It is that is what I did. Fake news was
Right,
always there in some form or the. So problem is, and we learned we burnt our fingers. We did stories and the story was not right. Someone just planted it. But when the institutions suffer, that is where you suffer. So, finally, if you don't have good institutions, media institutions, which unfortunately are not there and probably will not be, they will suffer more in next 2 years. But then this problem will keep happening because the quantum of information, as I said in the beginning, that earlier there were on a highway, there was suppose 100 cars were passing in an hour. Now 1 crore cars are passing in an hour. Now that has become the volume of information. So unless there are good information managers, then you have to suffer
right,
as a reader.
right. We can take up third question from Urmi. No, Dijoy, fine. Sir, how do you think the politicians are playing a role in the field of mass communication? And most of the time, is the truth being hidden from the common people just for their benefit?
You see, whether it is a politician, whether you, me, or any other person, think honestly. I always love to project the best side of me, right? If you are giving me an opportunity, I will try to, when I'm appearing before camera, I'm combing my hair, I'm doing up this, that, right? I'm putting the best background. This is so politicians are in the business of, are in the business. They have to get votes. They want to reach to the maximum people. Same with companies. They also, they also want to reach. So obviously they will try to plant their side of the story. It is the job of a good journalist. It is the job of a good institution. That is where the journalist comes into play. That is where his experience, his domain expertise comes into play. He goes and picks up the trades, he dissects the information and then gives it to you. Journalism, it should not be a cheap affair, which the way it is now being projected, it should not be a cheap affair. If it is cheap, if you get cheap journalists, I always say that if you pay peanuts, you will get monkeys. That's a
Right,
simple line altogether.
right. You're absolutely right. And of course, that is what mass communication should be achieving always, spreading knowledge and information to the people, helping them to be more involved in the happenings around the world, be it any form, print, digital, etc. And that is what brings out the best in people. I think we can take up the question from Urmi. Sir, my question is with artificial intelligence approaching, how do you think with the mass communication industry be flourishing?
Well, this is a very serious issue. This is where technology has put up a huge challenge. I can give you number of examples why the artificial intelligence can create a problem. I mean, let's put it this way. You must be aware of this term called algorithm, right?
Yes, yes.
In social networking, when you see a Facebook on your Facebook or Twitter, when the ranking of this, what you see first, kind of, okay, when you open up a Google page, you are searching on something, and what comes on the first page, first 10, these all are on this term
I
called
got the
algorithm. Now, what is algorithm? It is this, what is happening is, if Google Alexa, what they're doing is that machine is there all day. It is listening you. It is going to your last preference. Whatever is your preference, it knows. Now, what is happening? Artificial intelligence is matching these preferences and dishing out news to you. Okay. The problem here is, and that's a very big problem. When you talk of mass media, earlier in newspapers, we were told that there were no first page, last page business, right? Every story is important. Some stories are going in the first page, but the middle page story is equally important. Inside page story is equally important. You might remember, at least say 15 years ago in the sports page, there were representation of all kind of sports, like athletics, badminton, these, that. The problem is today, what is happening is because of artificial intelligence, normally, lay readers, fashion, suppose entertainment, they are more interested in that. And the machine is reading that he is very interested. And then comes the business interest of selling that story. So he is bombarded with that kind of story only. That is a big problem. And where it is creating our life miserable and our understanding is getting wrong. I can give you two examples. One, during the American, US election, you might, if you have read the newspapers, you have got or the television, you have got a impression that Trump will lose. The reverse happened, right? Similarly, 2019 Lok Sabha election. If you read the newspaper, if you have gone through the mass media, you would have got an idea that there will be kind of a hung parliament, right? And even many politicians believe that, but that didn't happen. That didn't happen. So that is the news. Why this kind of news flooded us is because artificial intelligence was clouding. I should blame here the news managers was clouding their kind of prudence. But at the same time, it is giving us a ray of hope, and it goes with the name of the program. The ray of hope is that people, we are discussing so much that how people will pick up the good news and the bad news. But see, people are going back. People are using, they are not depending only on the machine intelligence. They are using their own intelligence. They are asking I don't know how they are doing. I don't know they must be asking, they must be depending on some dada, these, that, whatever it is. Their village, their own experiences, they are matching, and they are doing that. These two, to me, as someone who is extremely interested in statistics and all this, because I love to go into these election projection things. Okay, I did to some extent. So as a learner in that area, this is very interesting. These two examples are very interesting too. How it is happening.
Right, sir.
Yeah. I think you have another question.
Before we take up another question, and again, I think a person who is determined to spread positivity through his or her work could bring in a sense of belonging and develop people's mindsets. And of course, Robert Kiyosaki also said, in today's fast-changing world, it's not so much what you know, anyone that counts, because often what you know is old. It is how fast you learn. That skill is priceless. We can take up the question from Pratim. Yeah, sir, how are these mass communication platforms coping up with the new change due to this COVID-19 situation? Is COVID affecting the publication and finding of necessary new topics difficult?
Yes and no. Of course, to some extent, you see, when your ground movement is restricted, when you are afraid to move out. But I will say, if you have noticed our experience for last 3 months or 4 months, is if you are here, what Shanda was saying is that about adaptability, your adaptability with the changing times, right? To be very honest, I didn't find it too difficult. I didn't find it too difficult. I was using my past experience, field experience, because yes, here comes the experience part. You have to know that field, you have to know that geography. With that, whatever information is coming, you are filtering, you are analyzing. Suppose we are talking something about, say, Jalpaiguri district, right? I'm sitting in Kolkata. I'm not going out of my house. Now I know the geography, the sociology, social part, social anthropological part. I mean, which communities are there, how are there, what is the political composition, should be very clear to me. If it is very clear to me, then when something is coming up, suppose someone in today's world, someone just does a video and throws up, or someone makes a comment on social media, and I'm picking it up. Now here
Right.
comes the play. You are going, as an experienced journalist, you will have some, first is you have a basic filter working in your mind, that whether this is possible or not possible. Second is you will know someone or the other in the area, or will reach out and will try to know over phone that about the situation. This is all about your experience that comes into play. So I didn't find it too difficult. I didn't find it. I have been doing stories in my own, I've been writing profusely and writing. I didn't face any problem. But ground
We
reporter,
can
yes, the traditional forms of news collection will suffer. So you have to change the form. You have to adapt to the new situation and get it done.
We have a question from Deepshita Chaudhary. Mass communication has always been expected to be a way to promote self-learning for enhancing your skills. Does this usually happen, or has ever happened, or will it be happening in the near future, sir?
I didn't understand this question exactly. I mean, promoting self-learning means, I mean, a reader is learning and is, kind of through his learning, he is gaining something, some bit of knowledge. Uh,
I think
it
it will continue
happened.
to happen.
If it happened, but see, out of every 100, you see, it will depend on the application of the part of the reader or the viewer. I mean, if you just listen to me and start believing whatever I said is correct, then it cannot happen. Na? When you read your first book, you had one idea of the world. Then you read second book, then you read third book, and then you kept on reading. And then you had a completely different idea about literature, about the world, right? So it's like that. You have to keep on doing that. Whosoever is not doing is outdated.
Right.
That's it.
Sir, since you have talked about that one has to update and otherwise the generation would be outdated, I think we can talk about the old generation. So, how do you think the old generation of mass communication today is changing their methods and ways of communication? And what are the new generation accepting, and how are the new generation accepting this change?
Okay, you see, I actually, the change is in your mind, it is not in your age. Okay. Though we often tend to relate it to the age. That way I'm old too. But you see, I'm giving you another analogy. If you look at
Right.
IT industry, nowadays companies don't recruit IT engineers. They prefer to hire, outsource the service. You know the reason? Because and the average shelf life of an IT engineer is only 2 years. Whatever he learns, the subjects will be valid only for 2 years. In NASDAQ, that is the American index,
Course.
stock
Yeah.
index, the average stay of a company is for only 7 years. So all these Google, Netflix, whatever you are seeing, they will rule the world not for
Forever.
your grandfather passed on, are gone. It's the days of very, very fast changing technology. So someone who is aged 22, 23, 25, he can also become outdated, and people do become outdated. The only clutch here is to keep on updating yourself, try to understand what is going to be the trend, where things are moving. So your engagement from the point of view of how old and new, the old had some advantage because the technology development pace of technology improvement in technology was slow, so he got a lot of time to acclimatize with the weather and to change. The young generation actually have to face a bigger challenge because they have to change at a much faster pace than we did. That is it.
Right.
So the
We can
young
take
will
up.
be old too fast. Their burnout will be faster if they get update.
Don't you think
Yes or no?
that media runs more like a business rather than running as an organ which shares correct information, knowledge, and wisdom, sir? Sir, there are so many questions. I'm not sure how will we get them addressed.
No, tell them. I mean, media was a business. It has to be a business. How will you pay me? Someone has to pay me, right? I need good
Right.
life.
Right. So we can take up another
But
question from
you buy
Priyanka.
the correct product. Hmm, tell.
Uh, yeah, Arpita Roy, sir, what is grapevine communication and how it can affect mass communication? Sir, they're thinking you as a mass communication professor, I think.
And the hair maybe. No, what is grapevine? That is where you have to learn, and you have to keep reading. I mean, I cannot tell you that you take out this app and put it to that app, and it will tell you this is grapevine. So that's
Right,
not.
right,
You
right.
shouldn't
We have a
believe.
very, right.
You shouldn't live in a fool's world to believe whatever whosoever is saying.
Sir, we have an excellent question from Mr. Vishal Kundu. He has been asking all intelligent questions from last three sessions. I think I would like to talk to you once this session is over. Sir, he is asking you, can you think of any news story that you have read or watched on television and what, according to your opinion, was an excellent piece of journalism? These questions are worth asking, I believe, in such kind of forums where
I,
people
I
with so
didn't
much
I, I didn't
understanding.
understand. I didn't understand the first part of question.
Sir, whichever news it is, I think he is asking uh, what was the most, like, what was the best piece according to you? You have been there in this industry from last few years. So it can be any news. It can be business. It
What
can
was the
be,
best? There cannot be only one news, but there are many news that came up. For example, in 1992, Sucheta Dalal, she is still there in the business. Sucheta Dalal did the first story on stock market, possible stock market scam, right? Security scam, that is what it is referred to. And the point is that often such stories that way the best of these there are stories are of two types: one which is breaking a new information, and two which is analyzing and giving you another perspective of things. Now, earlier mode of journalism, because when the technology was not so good, and when the things life was a bit slower, so breaking story was a very important issue. So, for example, Bhagalpur blinding case, on which there has been a film. Now, this was actually broken by a journalist from that place in Indian Express, most probably. I mean, but he didn't get his due. Another journalist who wrote it very in a better way, he got the most of the accolades. But that small time person is it didn't get his small town person didn't get his due. Same thing happened with the coal. In the last decade, I noticed some small papers broke the news. So, from news breaking point of view, they were excellent breaks, but went unnoticed. But about reading good pieces or reading a fantastic, watching a fantastic reportage, yes, I do have. I do, of course. Uh, that has been my profession. Every day I read at least half a dozen newspapers.
right. That was an intriguing and informative answer, sir. So I can only say, of course, we all are talking about mass communication. If people do follow such kind of practices, we know that where the mass communication is heading and the effect it has on people going forward. Another thing, people today love to question, and that is the beauty of a webinar like this. We can take up
Good.
one or two more questions. Yeah, so from Arnab Das, Piali, how does social media affect youth, sir?
So should you read out and then I will answer,
Yeah, I read it.
or
I am saying,
should
how
I
does
answer?
yeah, yeah, sir, how does social media affect youth?
Okay, let us put it rather how social media is impacting the information space, and youth is obviously part of it. Now there has been a new coinage called WhatsApp University. Okay, so people, this is what I was telling you, that there is too much of information. So if people simply starts believing in whatever they are seeing, which I believe is just a passing phase, uh, then of course it is really it distracts. And who shouldn't tell you that if you keep Facebooking all day, when will you get your time to read a good book, or do something more meaningful, or you should of course be there. You should of course be there. This is a new tool, you should be there. But it's like that, if you keep eating sweets, you love sweets, so you kept eating sweets, then you become fat. Okay, you also have to have your time for exercise. So it's like that, you have to be a little choosy, you have to be a little disciplined in life. I think that has become very important. Otherwise it will drag you into the thing.
Right. I think we can just take up one more question if we have. One last question. What is mass media law and how is it involved in mass communication?
What is mass media law and how it is? Oh my God, that's a.
This is
I'm
industry is
really.
driven, yeah.
You
Any
see,
industry is
there are
driven by the
every.
law.
No, and moreover, when you are doing something in public, when you have a public presence, right, you have to follow certain, you have to go within the legal framework. Suppose when
Right.
I appear before a screen, so I get well dressed, right? Similarly, there is a decorum in it. Similarly, when I am speaking something in writing, or in a television or in a print medium, wherever it is, or in advertisement, when you are doing something for the people, you have to have grip over language. You have to understand what is sensitive, what is not. Your
Right.
point is, as I said, as we discussed, that it is our main motto, whether you are a public relations person, whether you are a filmmaker, whether I'm a journalist, we all three of us do have the same aspiration. We want to reach the maximum number of people. If we want to, and which means a more diverse crowd. So if we want to do that, we have to follow certain principles. We cannot just pick up. Suppose if we speak in Bengali, then there will be only Bengali crowd, right? But if we speak in English, there may be more diverse crowd. So that's it. You have to be within
Right.
that league. You have a great responsibility when you are in mass media.
Right. So our mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it isn't open. So I would like to end this session on a knowledgeable note, saying that mass communication can be as haunting as The Shining, but if managed with full strength and passion, it would definitely appear to be Winnie the Pooh. The end is the beginning, as everyone says. So hereby we are signing off. hoping that you all enjoyed as well as learned a lot from this session. I would like to thank you, sir, for taking time off your busy schedule and being a part of this session on the tenets of mass communication, past, present, and future. In Turiya Talks, we have always tried to open up various aspects about the present scenario in the global economic spectrum. And today, we were blessed to have Mr. Pratim Bose with us. Do let us know how did you like the session and what new topics would you love to talk uh, or to listen. Like, subscribe, and press the bell icon for receiving notification from Turiya Talks. Until Saturday, this is Sandhya Sutodia signing off. Good night, take care, and have a great week ahead.
And now we are back with season 3. Be a part of the conversation now and get a chance to interact with guest speakers from all walks of life every Tuesday and Saturday at 6:30 p.m. only on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to Turiya Talks and hit the bell icon to never miss an update.